Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee this evening. Very much welcome it. One of the key messages that was in the Commission on Taxation's report was the acknowledgement that the adequacy of social welfare rates is central to poverty reduction. Regular benchmarking exercise for working age payments should be undertaken, which would set multi-annual targets for progress in rates. The 4 chapters that you've asked us to comment on, I kind of suppose briefly touch on because we had sent in our submission to you earlier in January. Promoting Enterprise Chapter 9, I suppose what was striking was that this chapter very much focuses on the tax system. Yet for people who are unemployed, particularly those who maybe find it difficult to access employment because of barriers to their access, self-employment can be an important route. And to that end, the Back to Work Enterprise Allowance is an important support for people. And we would like to see that improved. I think it is regrettable that that wasn't dealt with in the report. And we feel it would be very much in keeping with some of the government's aims in the Economic Recovery Plan to introduce a range of measures to support young people, disadvantaged groups and people distanced from the labour market to find employment. In terms of Chapter 10, there's an acknowledgement of that a coherent approach is required to the design of taxation and welfare. One of the issues that comes up for us regularly in our work is the complexity of our social welfare system. This situation, coupled with uncertainty about how the taxation system might impact on an unemployed person seeking to move from welfare payment into work, can make making such a move challenging. A challenge that can be exacerbated if the only work available does not have a regular pattern, leading to income uncertainty and insecurity. Our tax and welfare systems must adopt a strong proactive attitude to information dissemination, seeking to ensure that everyone living and working in Ireland is aware of their rights and entitlements, what they can seek and where, what information and documentation is required of them to engage in the tax welfare systems. And though online engagement will be more conducive for many to facilitate such provision, it is essential that people for whom online engagement is not feasible have full access to meaningful supports and services. The report also acknowledges, I suppose, the role social protection plays in times of major economic shock in smoothing out issues for people. And I think the COVID pandemic really demonstrated this, how a flexible and supportive public administration and its impact it can have. The rollout of PUP was unprecedented in its scale and speed. It and the enhanced illness benefit payment provided timely and much better income supports to people who would otherwise have struggled at a very difficult and challenging time. Later on in this chapter, they also acknowledge that over the past decade, there's been a clear policy of developing the public employment service in line with international thinking, that for people of working age, social protection systems should be more active, provide support for job seekers seeking employment, as well as providing benefits. The downside of this approach has been that our public employment services become more linked to particular social welfare payments, in particular job seekers to which genuinely seeking work criteria apply. Such an approach does not lend itself to developing a person-centred service inclusive of all people of working age, leaving people who are unemployed and not in receipt of a payment or job changers outside of most labour market supports. This can be a particular issue for women, but it has also been in more recent times a particular issue for men who when they came to the end of their JB. And also, later on, they note that there must be a capacity to respond to, for greater demand for training and support, where people are unemployed due to sectoral decline, where tasks are transferred to automated processes. There's also the challenge facing us of Ireland's economy needing to decarbonise. And over the past number of years, INOU affiliates have noted that as good jobs are lost in their area, alternative employment too often has inferior pay, terms and conditions. Such a scenario not only throws up difficulties at the personal, familial and communal levels, but also presents tax and welfare challenges as well. So these are ones that we need to address as we move forward. In terms of promoting employment, access to good social welfare and employment supports and services is critical, not only for people who are unemployed, but for Ireland's social and economic development. In a changing world of work, everyone of working age needs to be able to access good information, supports, and to make informed and sustainable decisions. They note that the public employment service that job seekers are not a homogeneous cohort, and the requirements of other cohorts may be even more diverse, requiring a range of responses from the public employment service. This is absolutely true, and it is essential that the recognition of this diversity is informed by the public sector equality and human rights duty. In a report that we did a few years back around looking at what a quality public employment service would be, key aspects of that we noted were clear communication, a positive approach, proactive support, building relationships and networking, and cooperation and building links with employers. We need to make sure that as we move forward that the system demonstrates that it does believe in the potential and capacity of the person, that it engages with them and supports them to make an informed choice. Moving forward to Chapter 12, entitled Inclusive and Integrated Social Protection, again, they note the important role that social protection plays over people's lives, and how it very much is there that one of the principles they notice, is it mitigating and sharing of risk across society. That it acts as a safety net for those who are at risk of poverty. It follows, therefore, that social welfare rates must be adequate in order to effectively provide such a safety net. We feel this is absolutely critical. We feel that the action taken during the pandemic crisis highlighted the importance of good and adequate social welfare rates. And a key learning for us from it is that as the economy and labour market reopened, people went back to work. And that people, not impoverishing people, is critical to supporting them to be able to return to work. So that we really do need a social welfare system that is adequate, that it lifts people above the poverty line, that it ensures they can meet a minimal essential standard of living. And we would cite the very important work done by the Vincentian Messel Research Centre in that regard. We have called for a good number of years the introduction of a work-friendly social welfare system that is reflective of changing work practices, that's based on hours rather than days. In December, the Department of Social Protection launched their consultation. It's primarily this time around focusing on pay-related benefits, but it also floated the idea of a working age payment, which was initially floated or raised in Pathways to Work. It's an interesting proposal, but we would regard that a lot more work would need to be done around how that will develop, and it will be in keeping with some of the recommendations in this chapter that the Commission on Taxation have. Likewise, the pay-related benefit. Again, what has been proposed, it's pay-related up to a point. Again, it has caps, and we will be concerned at the further cut in duration to job seekers' benefit. In the 2008 crisis, job seekers' benefit, its duration was cut quite considerably, and that has never been reinstated. And that does have particular implications for unemployed people who don't make the transition to JA and then find themselves outside of supports. So again, we feel some of those proposals, which were also reflected in the Commission on Taxation's report, would need to be reconsidered because they could have detrimental effects for those who are unemployed and who maybe would not be eligible for a job seekers allowance. Thank you very much.